April Notebooks of 2016, Chronicles of Ascension, Chronicles of Melchizedek, the Sacred Male. I'm a friend of my heart to your heart, love and peace. Silence, I am with you. There are many years, I gave them the yoga of unity and truth. What I will say today does not fall in that context, but is well over a continuity break. I do not come, either, give them new teachings, because everything is finished and all is said. I come simply in the sacred masculine, remind them that the most important yoga, in the history of mankind has always been the yoga of devotion or bhakti yoga. This fits perfectly in emergence of the sacred masculine. So therefore, this is not something old and outdated, but much more a yoga that today falls, totally, both in simplicity, humility, and in the clarity of his inner self that emerges now. Devotion. Devotion to each, the sky is the earth, is the little forgetfulness of the principle itself, which leads them to install large you until its demise in the heart of the Absolute or to the definitive establishment, beyond this body, see and, therefore, in multidimensional states. Yoga of devotion always represented an often indispensable aid. In the West, where the mental is perfectly structured by reason, the yoga of devotion is literally breaking the reason. Devotion towards heaven and earth, for each one of our brothers and sisters, incarnated or not, translates directly. Some stars have already developed, largely through their way of life when his incarnation. In step that takes place on earth, the reason it will not be over any utility. You realize, now and ever, and even, for some, there are many years, your reason and your mind cannot work according to established schemes, according to the things you have learned or know. They are replaced by direct vision, the vision of the heart, the inner vision. There is an alchemy, and this alchemy is produced both in your right brain and his left brain, in its masculinity and femininity, and his pole emissive and its receptive pole. Think of the devotion as not an effort, either. This produces spontaneously. Many of you have experienced the fact, without understanding why, without any reason, you need to give, it is spontaneous. This need does not come from his reason, does not come from his person, but comes from the evidence of light and love, when it fills your life, whether through vibrations, whether through contacts with people of nature or simply in any human relationship that is. Devotion should not be an exercise like those I described them a few years ago, and you practiced. The devotion settles itself, so that C emerges. There, too, a change of direction of the sense of energy and consciousness. Devotion translates interiority lived in full, and the interiority really found the C, which escapes thus the person, their desires and their needs, which escapes thus the social rules of working in groups, whether these groups are those of the family, whether spiritual groups, or even a country. Devotion is established for itself. It is the moment in which you are filled with gratitude and grace, is the moment in which you act without thinking, under the laws of spontaneity, innocence and childhood. Yoga of devotion does not use any energy technique. It is your consciousness that is expressed directly, when in the face of a brother, a sister, a situation or any relationship that is. The other becomes you entirely, and you no longer have, therefore, point of view to defend, you have nothing to defend, nothing more to gain, nothing to lose. It is the time when all your personality, if it still exists, it becomes spontaneous. There is a permanent gift that is expressed even through the personality, and this concerns both the money and the service, as the gift of self. Devotion is a state of perpetual prayer, as you are appointed in the West. It is as if a prayer of the heart that unfold independently of any will and regardless of any situation, giving them to live the clarity of love and unconditional love in its manifestation and its apparent and visible essence in every circumstance. The yoga of devotion makes them disappear from the field struggles, personality field, and comes transcend it and alchemise it in full. No longer, therefore, a matter of vibrational experience, it is more a matter of speaking, just not in vibrator inverters structures, as was the case for many years, as you might live it or expect to live. Devotion comes expel what can remain locks, ratio and oppositions in you, or resistance regarding their eternity and the ascension of the earth. Devotion also allows at any level, whether on the scale of the cell, the range of different runs of your physical body, even to the body energy level. Devotion is a balm that will allow them to observe the effects of donation, not reflected, but much more spontaneous. Because everything is given without being spontaneous is lost. All that is given without reason, under any circumstances whatsoever, it is not supported in any way, in any trade and any exchange, is the true nature of love in the incarnation, as is the case in the worlds that are named third unified dimension. There is, therefore, effectively, as they have been confirmed over the 2 years just to drain the reality of ascension lived in the flesh in this world, in this very moment. So therefore, if you are in hesitation to give themselves, to give whatever it is, you cannot keep himself and cannot be truly unfold themselves. As said some stars, you should disappear and must appear in glory in eternity. But for this, we must accept, as said other Melchizedeks, be nothing, just be the lowest on this earth. Of course, the ego, if it is still present, will, ever, whisper them or yell that this has any sense, it does not match any rule, any logic, and this is perhaps not deserved. Never can put up this kind of issues because it is inscribed in spontaneity, in innocence, and what is the most fluid possible. There's no question, therefore, force yourself to stay in the yoga of devotion. He sets for himself, from the moment you have given the first step to Christ. This is not a belief. It is not, either, a vibratory aspect, as part through activation of Port or even new forms and modes of expression of the radiant crown of the heart through the new triunity, the new mass or, moreover, the triunity archangelic or sacred feminine. The sacred masculine is, it also, donation. It is, I remind, the externalization of the flame of love in a creation that was prepared and that alchemizu, when the creation of life and the birth of a child. So therefore, the Bhakti Yoga does not have to be simply sought but will translate to the level of its effects. You will realize, increasingly, that the more you donate, the more you receive, and cannot be otherwise. Until now, many of you have received the light, many of you alchemize around this light to some extent or to its purpose, the last, the absolute or para-Brahman. Others, as our commander said, could observe in themselves and around them, moves faster and sudden between the sea and the eagle. Today, the sea that is installed, the revelation of the light, in full, in this world, and the ascension of the earth and its release must be reflected in the reality of facts. So therefore while you handle something, you are not free. So therefore, until you have given everything, you cannot be free and be released, waiting for the call of Mary. So therefore, the step that takes place will allow them to see, more and more obvious way to your look, their senses, their behavior. There is a capacity, at grace donation and the gift of self to live and experience the gratitude and unconditional love. Giving no reason, give yourself is indeed the ultimate sacrifice. Understand well with that, how could understand it the ego, which is not a matter of putting an end to his life or whatever existing in your world, in your environment or your life, but, much more, being available to the emergence of love that will lead, inevitably, the constant presence of the yoga of devotion, not only in relations, but in all the acts and all the facts of your most common life, that is. The yoga of devotion is the anticamber of the manifestation of the sacred feminine, coupled to the sacred masculine in the ascension process underway. So therefore, I invite you to test for yourself, and watch on you like around you, if the sea is established. If the sea is established, you cannot judge anyone, you cannot point the finger at anyone, not even himself. The sea is not an empty word, it is the final realization preceding the absolute and return to dimensional worlds, as to what is beyond source. His life shows you that. So therefore, if there are upwellings of mind, emotions upwelling of pain, do not see there simply resistance, but much also the elimination of blocking also access to your eternity, definitively. There's no question, and you know it, to want to work on what belongs to the personality, but rather seek the kingdom of God that is within you, and that appears now in its exterior. For this, you should give up. For this, we must live the ultimate sacrifice of the crucifixion, in any way whatsoever and, I would say, even, in every way, because that's how you demonstrate, to themselves and to the intelligence of the light itself, where you are. Are you in fear? Are you in love? You are in peace or are in anger? For no good wanting to fight rages today, to no avail understand their anger, is concerned simply to see what unfolds on the screen of your consciousness. And who commands within you, and who is manifested in you and around you. The donation itself is a balm that will heal the suffering. Whether they are psychological or physiological not enter into account. The gift of grace, as it was called the state of grace is now, very precisely, which contributes to show them what is the yoga of devotion and thus put it into practice. Progressively, and as you release what holds still, or you safe, you will notice that everything will become more fluid in you, everything will be said according to the intelligence of light and will be produced spontaneously without no will, no desire and no need. So is the real life love, so is the real life that we name with you, unified third dimension in free worlds. There can be no organization system, as said Brother K, there can be no hierarchical systems or predation systems. There are, as we have named a community of principle, whether as for us, ancients, whether for the stars as to the archangels. The social model of this world is a collaborative model, participatory and collective, in which self-interest, the interest of the ego cannot stand, nor put forward, nor exercise the least power. Of course, we know, pertinently, that archaic forces of resistance, collapsing, so increasingly visible in his eyes, in any country whatsoever, try always to reconstruct past schemes, build a kind of energy architecture and vibrato corresponding to a principle of pyramidal predation. As you realize around you and in you, it can no longer work, and will work less and less. The action of the Archangel Michael, plowing his heaven, is eloquent on this subject. I invite them, by the way, for once, to observe the passage of meteorites, the places where they are marked and the effects on people living below the precise circuit meteors, such as they move in your sky. So therefore, you can tailor what happens in the sun, and his heaven and on earth and in your body, in some places of his body as in some places on earth. It begins to be what I would name a perfect fit between the inside and the outside. Here is the final alchemy of dissolution of the two poles, which leaves appear that all is one. When all is one, there can be no other, because each other is just for you. What it also means that the yoga of devotion, as there is in you, the notion of judgment, the notion of seeing something in the other that the other does not see, it concerns you and do not respect each other, because the other there is no more than you. So therefore, the intelligence of light and the state of grace, as well as the emergence of the sacred masculine, Rico Plato again, the sacred feminine, will put an end to what you name the patriarchal society, which is a preliminary and that unfolds in this time even before the announcement of Mary and the appearance of geophysical changes the most important of the earth. This should not disturb them in any way, and do not disturb in any way, from the moment you are in devotion and set of criteria and words that was said during these chronicles, I would say, of Melchizedek, concerning ascension. So therefore, love is sweet, love is patient, love is not inflated, ever proud. Love will not, ever see what is wrong, but simply see the love, and, always, love and solely love. And this is not a decision of the ego, not even the see is the very nature of love, you cannot see anything other than the love in the most sordid events as the most magnificent that can be produced both in you and on its exterior. Yoga of devotion will compete to make disappear all existing limits, yet, the most important are, of course, the limits of his own body in relation to another body. There is therefore a real axis and concrete, by the grace of love, the adamantine lights and vortices on earth, and our presence is at the level of the forces of the intergalactic confederation of free worlds, which aims to show them the path of childhood. Back to become like a child will not become an empty word, but it is the reality of what is to live. Back to become like a child, living spontaneity is accompanied, of course, a certain number of elements that are not solely vibration, not solely the presentation of his consciousness in this world, but that accompany criteria very precise. They will be developed in the speeches that follow mine, and allow you to be located, lie openly, without subterfuge, without hypocrisy, in the only face-to-face really concrete will be left to them to live alone with himself. Because, in fact, and you know it, no one will judge you. light makes it free and respects their free will, if you believe it yet. So therefore, the light does not force anyone, it establishes itself by grace. It has nothing to conquer, it has nothing to disperse, she has only to merge with what could also oppose it, a few months ago. This takes place both in you and in the surface of this world. Countless revolutions, numerous movements, numerous explanations appear, even in society and, this, world way, the scale of all humanity, whatever the evolution of his humanity, that is, the two humanities. Yoga of devotion will therefore appear in you, which gives them to live at the same time, the childhood way, as Teresa explained at the same time, the last path, as they presented Jamagalgani, at the same time the mystical state the most successful and the most perfect knowledge, as the sisters Mananda Moy and Hildegard von Bingen said, there are many years. Christ is really present, and Christ's total gift, the real story of Christ is just show it. All the rest were only deviations by power men who want to control and regulate, and avoid precisely what is taking place on the scale henceforth collective, the total awakening of humanity with horror or happiness, which precedes, very little, the appeal of Mary and the final movement of the earth. You are therefore in an urgent manner, but this urgency should not be translated into a frenzy, but much more by an inner reflection, which does not concern your mind. Being in the position of that listening, that it welcomes and no longer solely the observer, but, much more, that it lets you work in him the forces of light, the intelligence of light and the gift of grace. It cannot stay inside because if he stayed inside and lived inside the temple, there would be no emergence of the sacred masculine, there would be absolute and full realization in this world the reality of love, the reality of light, the absence of division that will make see, effectively, that all is one. This is not an empty word, is not a concept, is not a belief, not a religion. This fits perfectly in the grounds of Advaita Vedanta, which is the conclusion I would say, of all religions, of all mysticism, of all releases and all rises, whether today, the collective scale, whether it has been the case, progressively and as the centuries, in all traditions, in all civilizations. So therefore, the yoga of devotion makes it light, he makes it smiling, it lights up your look with a new flame, giving you see, beyond the perceptions of this world, which is beyond appearances, which is beyond the image and what is beyond what was their common habitual of his life for so long. It is no longer time to live experiences, solely with the people of nature, it is more time, not only of living brother communions the brother, but to express its light effortlessly and spontaneously, wherever you are and at any time whatever. Not by a desire, not by a vibratory energy or evidence, but much more for the presentation of his conscience as Saturday Chidananda, peace supreme address, total bliss, which makes never smile can leave his lips. There will, of course, lightness. There will, of course, consequences of alchemy as the manifestation of light emanating not from heaven or earth, but that emanates directly, then you are in eternity. Of course, for some of you who have not lived to release the last, this may represent a form of challenge that gives them sometimes the impression of being dissociated, no more be in harmony, of being cut off from something. Remember that, increasingly, there is nothing to do, just to be and let emerge from see consciousness, the deeper self, the heart, until the outbreak the most tangible. Whether you're talking to a brother or sister, whether in a factory, working, whether you are looking at the sky, whether you are tending the garden, whether you are defending their interests in an environment that has nothing to do with the light, Bhakti Yoga will become evidence. And that's what you can find peace, you can find the deletion of pain, the deletion of suffering, erasing the past memories and past conditioning. I said, indeed, that it is no longer at all, as was the case there is still some time and we had named the resistance to light. It can no longer be resistance to light, there are simply people who did not identify himself entirely, which are, incidentally, the most subject to our commander had called twists that made the experience exceed the other experience, not making, ever the truth definitively. Today, it is realized and fulfilled. If you accept this, you see, easily, that there is no effort to do, in relation to whatever and against anyone. As I said, the smile will win his lips and cannot, ever, go out, even in his sleep, even in the altercations that may occur with the dying around you. The yoga of devotion is therefore the purpose of the yogas of unity and truth. It does not clog more with rituals and new information. It is based on simplicity, evidence of the manifestation of light, but also for some of you, on the evidence of ego. There is therefore a kind of electrical discharge that occurs, for some of you, that leads them to rectify what to rectify, not by an effort of comprehension, not in acquired knowledge, but directly from the impulse the deepest of your heart to express His eternity, His light, every circumstance of His life during this period. There is no better way to prepare, there is no better way to be ready, there is no better way to serve humanity in this period than give Himself. He who gives does not need to reflect in any fear whatsoever. Because he knows himself, because he resigns voluntarily to express what is in personality, in this world, there are very ancient times. No more need of psychological knowledge, there is no need for vibration, no need of silence and peace, innocence, transparency, simplicity and, above all, the spontaneity. Understand well that the Bhakti Yoga is something you should see emerge. If you do not see in you, do not be troubled. Numerous brothers and sisters awake around will show you the way, because the way in which they will present to you in the state of total grace that comes transcend all limits of that body and all the limits of all consciousness, even see awareness as the consciousness of ego or as superconsciousness. There will be no difference, either, between the different plans. This corresponds entirely to what has said the Archangel Anael, and his approach to the earth sky, through its symbol and its physical representation, meteorites and asteroids. During this time, wherever you look on earth, nothing was hidden can no longer be hidden. It's the same for you. If you can believe could hide a defect, do not forget, ever, that you will be reunited necessarily brothers and sisters, that they have the inner vision. Whatever you say, whatever you put as a mask, they cannot be deceived. But, simply, their love is the strongest of all, and thus nothing to say to you, without judging it, loving it, simply, you will live, you also transformation. It is therefore time to get deeper and deeper in itself, but it is time, to superficialize, increasingly, the state of grace in terms of tangible manifestation in this life, there where you are, at any age you have, any condition that you live. Warnings will not be the responsibility of the ego or the light, they are simply warnings of evidence, giving you more to do with cruelty, if I may say, their own deviations. But from the moment you accept not into the fault, vis itself, from the moment you accept the lighting of any defect that is in relation to light, simply no longer simply ask self-healing or resort to our presences, but much more easily enter even more deeply into yourself and forgive himself. The light will follow it without difficulty. It will happen to you at the time of the returns to the personality, if it still exists, considering that the meaning of sacrifice, giving may seem to the ego a heresy, and bring him in fighting with himself, between from the past and what comes of this. Do not assign, there, of no importance, and continues to be spontaneous. Continue not reflect and let life reflect for you, the reality of light, update it, express it, make it tangible and, above all, more efficient, regardless of any personal will, regardless of any desire still subscribe to the level of spirituality of personality. So you will discover the immensity of love, through the acts and simple gestures, through the simplest behavior. For example, to say, simply, good morning to enter a trade, not as an automatic act, as you did before, but as a celebration. Just as some of you bless the meal, bless every minute of your life, every reunion, every circumstance without knowing, even if it is good or bad, because that, ultimately, concerns only the person and their survival reflexes. One who installs himself or that there is installed permanently, no longer need to conventions, no more need for rules, no more need for moral. He is guided, infallibly, by his own heart. He has no need to put the question to his heart, as we had taught a little over 1 year. All this becomes, ultimately, I would say, obsolete, given the evidence of superconsciousness in emanation and manifestation in the very surface of this world. Wherever you turn your eyes, both in itself and in its exterior, you will find that the changes affect us more and more, in one way or another. Whether the geophysical aspects, either by poverty or wealth, whether by changing their relationships, all this, as the collective scale, contributes to the establishment of the kingdom of light, even if the first alchemical fusions of the ephemeral and the eternal at the collective level, can sometimes seem shocking or even conflicting. Change point of view, because it's not that, it's just adjusting the one light, true and authentic in your life, in all the circumstances of this world in this life. Then, of course, through it and what is experienced by brothers and embodied sisters, some design a better world, others think return to the world of origin, others, finally, are terrified by the end of the matter, others, finally, a live exultation of joy to any other similar, given the significant advance of the full revelation of the light and therefore the earth's ascension. But remember that each of you has the same address, either now, whether at the appeal of Mary, and, then, there is nothing to judge, there is nothing to improve, because, effectively, everything is absolutely in order and everything is absolutely perfect in the light plane, in love plane, and in your personal plan. Whatever you say, and even if, especially today, you complain, if, especially today, it seems you again express fears of any element that is, do not cling to it again. Be content to enter the devotion. Make your life a permanent prayer on every occasion, in every circumstance, not only to ask for something, but to pray the light simply. For this prayer unintentionally, that comes from the depths of your heart or even the interference of his personality fringes, you'll find out very quickly, without even meaning to, without even asking, there is instantly a change that it produces. It is the evidence of the light that seeks to make them live the yoga of devotion, more clearly, effortlessly, with grace and lightness. Joy, of course, peace, vibration, if you the living, as well as what you can see in the course of his life, fully confirm this. If something stands in you, if an event takes place in your life, do not complain against the light, but put yourself, yes, the issue of where you are in relation to the light. You become light? Because if you become real and concrete, light, performing this the authentic way, there can be no obstacle in any kind of imbalance whatsoever, whatever you live, whatever you have to face, in any experience mystique that you have to live. Remember that you have no more henceforth all the same experiences to live. Each is located, increasingly, firmly now in its vibrational assignment, according to the needs of the soul, if it exists, according to the evidence of the spirit, or according to the personality that needs to be found, yet more precisely in the matter before disappearing. This is where everything is in its place, and that henceforth the Bhakti Yoga is certainly what is most important in revealing the cardinal virtues of his heart, and the update of light, this terminal phase and of the end of the illusion that world. You are therefore invited to the gathering. You are therefore asked to leave emanate light and not put any mask. Because, remember that whatever you have in the face of you, you do not know the one who sees it, sees with the heart, and whatever you hide it, it will see, anyway. This reunion, in which there is no judgment, not on one side or the other, or desire to conceal whatever it is, the grace of love will transmute, the relationship itself, what is to transmute? The intelligence of life, fluidity of the unit for you, very precisely in very good place to live you have to live. There are no doubts, just that change of perspective. If you notice a leg, there is not to accuse or the other, or evil, or the archons, or the circumstances or chance. Except, whatever you live it entirely, everything is very exactly the best place to enable you to live the call of Mary, due to its vibrational assignment. I remember, it does not depend on his person, but the soul or the spirit. The soul is dissolved. His person has no possibility of action on this, or any effect on it. The only thing you can change is your point of view and adopt, without forcing, Bhakti Yoga. Let the service to the other become more important than the service itself, in the sense of self, or see, in the sense of oneness. Do not worry about nothing else. Its operation and its logical match your person, that concerns both food intolerances as behavior arising from old wounds that strictly represent nothing except what is ephemeral and which is bright and who dies. If you accept it, then you will be regenerated by the fire of love, the dimensional truth that is his or absolute. Nothing can change this position. This happens, of course, by a trust, not you or even on the other, but full confidence in the intelligence of light. In other words, the commander said long ago, There is no quibble, just to see, just to acquiesce and, once and for all, and especially if the shocks you become increasingly violent, acquiescing to the light, render weapons, as has been said, and deliver, in full, without any restriction and without any condition, to the action of light and love. Know that every personality can control love. It can give proof of goodwill in relation to love, she can play roles, it can perform functions, but it cannot escape the truth. So therefore, can no longer be a difference, if you accept the yoga of devotion, of what unfolds within you as its exterior. I do not speak of the world in its entirety, but, at least, of their usual environment as close. The miracle of grace, the miracle of love is beyond the vibrational aspect and beyond the vital aspect. It concerns directly, the pure consciousness, Saturday Chidananda, which is just happiness, it's just contentment and that's just joy. Hold back, too, which told them several years ago and there are still a few months, BD. He told them to drop everything, he told them to see, really, what you are, refute what you are not. All this now has no more need for participation of his person, but this refutation is established for itself. From the moment you are in false, in any situation whatsoever, the intelligence of light will warn you. This can translate effectively by anger ego for body pains, the feeling of being jammed or surpassed by any element that is, the fear of losing your life. I will remember that Christ said, those who want to save his life loses it will. He was not speaking of physical life, of course, but of eternal life. It's up to you now, not only to say yes, not solely be attributed to its exact place, but manifest it entirely, not willingly, but because the light is definitely there. It is what guides them, step by step, or fulminant way for the realization of his vibrato assignment to its final position to the appeal of Mary. If there is, in you, a utopia of a better world, is there freedom? This corresponds to what you have to live not on this earth, but in another land. If there is in you, only the joy in the disappearance of all fears, mental whole, every emotion, then you will be free already now, without waiting for the appeal of Mary. This freedom, I remember them, it is inside. It does not correspond to the circumstances of this world, with their moral and social frameworks that are, they also disappearing and disintegrating. Inner freedom begins to appear first, as will foreign freedom in this world. That's not it. This is an illusion the most, but which corresponds entirely to the positioning of these brothers and sisters who live their vibrato award second rolling plan designed by the soul. There is nothing therefore to judge, there is nothing therefore to rectify, there is nothing, therefore, to condemn, and there is nothing to applaud, either. There is just to stay silent on the grace of light, to stand in giving, spontaneity, and the set of words and explanations to them appear clearly, and we gave during these chronicles, which will allow them to see, for sure, as unfolds his life. In fact, you will find that the oscillations are less and less present and, if they present themselves again, they will become, in turn, increasingly violent and increasingly shocking to the person. Then, either, do not judge yourself. There is no one in late, there is no one in advance, because you come together, all at the same time the oath of promise, the appeal of Mary and collective liberation. It is to you that it is to live it, in the sense of the most complete and the most selfless service. Whatever life ask him, whatever life propose to you, she wants her well, even if it passes the disappearance of what you name the goods. It is also a way to be free and not depend on anyone or whatever. Do you think that all of my Eastern brethren, and India, more specifically, that really lived release in their time, had need to think about getting married, had need to think about finding a soulmate, had need of think of nourishing, dressing or find a roof? Absolutely not. The grace of light was occupied it, which was the case for me, since my younger age until my last day. Because? Because the light knew I had only one goal, was to serve the light and nothing else. Serve the light is part of the yoga of devotion. Serve each brother and sister, serve every enemy, serve every imposition that still manifest in you, there is the real abandonment to the grace and the true liberation. Of course, there was in previous years, other means of release and, in particular, the life wave, by the merger of radiant crowns, or even for some experiments. All this gave them the assurance that it is the light, but as you could see, does not fit, forever, or did not fit, always, the reality of this world. Now this world is dead. You see, still, his image, you see, still runs it, but it no longer exists, it has been said, in what is set to go down to the physical plane. The astral plane was purified, the ethereal plane is in its final purification, it remains only purify entirely, the Earth's physical body, so that it rediscovers in its new manifestation spectrum, named fifth dimension. Whether you are present on Earth at that time, whether young, whether old, whether alone or very surrounded, nothing will change, because it alone you must assert himself. Not for any duty, not by any will, but rather as the ultimate abandonment of all resistance that can manifest in you. In any case, the intelligence of light will show you, with ever more accuracy, which is not all so bright, both in you and in the outside, without however setting in motion the person's reflexes, consisting of judge, discriminate, separate, divide. Simple words separation and division will become unbearable to you. The search unit will be constant. Love and light will be the words that will be present, 24 hours a day in his ordinary life, whatever that life remaining. This is how the yoga of devotion is established by itself, and restore you to your eternity, even in this ephemeral body, which makes relativize, if I may say, all that can remain restrictions on you. Whether the disease, whether death, whether the loss, you nothing is all that, and this is not a belief, but the reality of what is living, which translates the joy, peace, simplicity and alchemy, the final dissolution of the last insulating layers and the last separations between the inside and the outside. All is one. This, too, will be present in you, every time. You will not see the flight of the bird, just like a bird flying, you no longer see the plant as simply one that gives you eat or blooming you, but, much more, a living being not necessarily communicating with it, as with the beings of nature, but living, really, the emanated love of all creation on the surface of the earth. Even what is emanated without love, one of his brothers or sisters incarnate, cannot destabilize it, or even provoke the slightest suspicion, not the slightest recrimination regarding this error ratio. Everything is perfect is also another word that will break it, and progressively as the devotion become increasingly you will be tempted, indeed, to smile to life, whatever they are, still, their resistance or their interiors, social, physical or energy constraints, or consciousness. Love will actually be placed everywhere, regardless of what you want. I could take innumerable examples. For example, you experience a rage against someone. You will see that person with a certain idea to tell you, as you say, his four truths. And you will realize at that moment that only love can appear regardless of differences, regardless of conflicts, regardless of difficulties. And love, no more difficulties. Appearances appear to you for what they are, trivial things that make sense only in what you were, but that no longer make sense in what you become or what you already are, on the surface of this world. I invite you also to breathe, I invite you also to use all the means that were available to them over the years, whether the response of the heart, whether yoga unit, whether the crystals or our contacts with people of nature. Most know that it refers only to strengthen the evidence of light and not resolve the whatever that belongs to the past and which is also manifested in your life. Let the dead bury the dead, let what is dead disappear from your life. Do not fight more, but love. Put love ahead, it was said, but see it in action. Look no support love for his person. Love is natural, it does not need you. It is what you are, in any circumstance, in any challenge whatsoever. This will take you also to position themselves in relation to the wishes, those of his soul and those of the spirit revealed in you. You are facing the matter? You are facing the love? You are entirely facing the love, or there are still steps to overcome, to open doors? But it's not that you can open them, or not you can implement the steps, it is the light that does. There is therefore an urgent need for recognition of light, his real being, in all circumstances of your life, even those you might call the darkest and even possibly his own death. Only the ego is afraid. Love knows no fear. So, as was said, fear or love? Increasingly, one or the other, but above all, increasingly, the manifestation of love, of service, of devotion and humanity simply. Be human, be simple, be good and benevolent. These words you have heard, we have developed. The length is up to you now. See them at work, both you and around you, and the world. Do not worry about the rest, because its release is acquired. There are already many years. If it remains, still, the uncertainty of the time that passes you, is that you are also registered in person. He who lives devotion does not have time to mind the unfolding collectively. He is not waiting for the coming of a celestial sign or 3 days, he is already in the new world, even if it is, still dressed in an old and outdated body. Do a few minutes of silence, before I conclude my remarks. Silence. Thus, you seize or you perceive the meaning of this phrase. While you have not given everything, you gave nothing. So therefore, the childhood and innocence way will be the safest and the surest way to avoid conflicts between you and the world, between you and yourself, this face-to-face, alone. In each situation, you can no longer seek any advantage, any privilege. Sharing love, sharing life will become the very meaning of his life. It is no longer the case. You consider this not as a quest, as something to get, but something that is there, to harvest, available in abundance. Only the ego will want to divert you that. Only the persistence of what is dead in the person will want to also make him believe that you have need to protect, to guard, to fight against whatever or whoever it is. Be humble, but be lucid. Be true, but is in love. Remember that there is no effort, but that is the intelligence of light that holds it in you because you are it. We are well aware and clear about the fact that their social system, and especially in the West, even if it becomes now similar and even on the scale of the planet, remember what is essential for you? You get your life or achieve life? Is it important for you to have and so be possessed, or to be free? It is important for you to be in the representation or be spontaneous? It is important for you to appear in an arranged perspective or present as a child? You are in a conditioned or you love, really in love? In this period you can see, real and tangible, that you still safe and who holds you in person. In this period, finally, that there are, of course, both of you as the collective scale, the last jolts of archaic beast of the archons, the private men of their sacred feminine, and therefore the disappearance. Now he comes into incarnation and manifests itself in each of you. This is what gives this impression sometimes of violence, more intense imbalance, or discomfort more intense. But it has only one time. Do not be late there. Be the donation, because you are giving. Do not look for love, because you are love. And love is abundance, an inner abundance, whatever inner destitution. As one who has plenty solely abroad, will be in deprivation inside, and this will cause a much greater suffering than the fear some of you may also feel. This concerns not only to such means, it concerns also the relationship. This corresponds also to its relation to the order and its relationship to the archaic society. For many of you who seem also suffocate under the weight of the chains of the past, know that this is the last experience that will break the chains that, in fact, never existed. There is no better opportunity, and, I would even say it is the last opportunity to see, really, what you are. Be humble, be sweet, as with everyone, because what you do each one, you do it yourself. You will see, too, that if you judge someone or issue a judgment, he will return to you in full face either concern to a situation, whether a judgment in the face of himself, whether a judgment of a brother or a sister. Know to pay attention, because this face-to-face, and that alone, only heart-to-heart will be able to cure. It seems you have to heal. The changes that come both of you as this world are updating and completion of the ascension. Of course, through which you can see, both in themselves and around them, as in the world, you see well, by himself, with lucid reason left eye, that obviously everyone lives different things. There was, of course, so far, vibratory plans, if I may say, passages forced by doors, by stars, by activation of some chakras and some mechanisms of consciousness. All this was seen by many of you, and lived. It remains for him the last step to be free. Free from everything and free yourself, and free society and free the world. If you, This puts problem then is that the resolution of space that has not reached you yet, its apex. Hold it risks being increasingly violent and virulent, but in any case, this goes against the light, on the contrary. Silence, I'm a friend. And let me, from my heart to your heart, bless your eternity. The same devotion is expressed for each of you, from my heart to your heart. This commune, in silence and in peace. Silence, I'm a friend. And you are all my friends. See you later.